This week, if Bitcoin can consolidate where it's currently at, Ethereum will likely be putting in a brand new all-time high. In today's video, we'll be talking about this, going over, of course, the most recent Bitcoin price action and what we can expect for this upcoming massive week for the markets. If you enjoyed the content, make sure to smash that like button and subscribe. Without further ado, let's jump right into the video. So since yesterday's video, not much has actually happened for Bitcoin. You can see that we're still within the same box and we tested the top of this range as support. Now we got a little bounce, but what will happen for this upcoming week? Because this is a massive pivotal week for Bitcoin. And as I started this video with, if Bitcoin can consolidate here and we don't get any more aggressive moves lower, then Ethereum will likely be putting in a brand new all-time high. That is before the correction that I've been talking about. So right now, Bitcoin just continues to chop around. We're right at this gray line over here, which is the point of control of the range, where you can see we have the highest volume node. If we can get back above there and hold it as support, ideally looking for something like this, then we could be seeing Ethereum make that all-time high. We just need Bitcoin to behave, as I always say. Now, what else am I looking at here? Because can Bitcoin make a brand new all-time high this week or the following week before a potential September correction? Actually, there is a possibility, but to see that, I would want us to reclaim at least the value area high, which is right around 120.5K. If we start breaking above this level and we come back down and hold it as support, that could be the spring that brings us above 124.5K, which is the current all-time high for Bitcoin. Now, if we make our way in this region, at that point, it's almost a 90% chance that Ethereum puts in an all-time high, but we also have to address the downside risk. If ETH starts trickling on down and we find our way back into this range, if Bitcoin finds its way back into this range, then at that point, ETH will likely struggle. Every time ETH goes down, it only happens because Bitcoin is going down. However, when ETH does trickle on up more aggressively than Bitcoin, lately it's been because Bitcoin has been consolidating, or it's been because Bitcoin has moved on a little bit higher. And this is very apparent on the ETH Bitcoin chart. As you can see here, this weekly candle right now for ETH Bitcoin is indeed green. Despite the correction that we got from 124.5K all the way down to 117K, we still see that ETH Bitcoin is in an uptrend, ETH outperforming Bitcoin for this week. And taking a look at Ethereum, honestly, I do like what I'm seeing here because we came back down. Now this could potentially be another pivot point. And this is the trend I'm looking at. We made a high, we made a higher low compared to over here, and then we moved on up and we got that flat consolidation before the next leg higher for ETH, inching towards all-time high, but not quite making it. So for this to be a bottom here and for ETH to break through its previous all-time high, we do need Bitcoin to, at the bare minimum, consolidate at these current levels. So let's see what happens. ETH Bitcoin looking good. Bitcoin is currently just holding on to this level. I really want to get back above this point of control, which is almost exactly at $118,000. And you can also see that ETH is currently in its fair value gap on the daily time frame. This is a pretty significant level for a potential reversal. Now, everyone on the timeline right now is calling for much lower valuations for Ethereum before we end up moving higher. And while I won't ignore this, because there is a possibility considering how aggressively we moved up from around 3.3K, I don't actually think that this will be the case if Bitcoin consolidates. The only correction that you will get for Ethereum is if Bitcoin decides to move lower from here. But if Bitcoin holds its ground and we continue to move up, at that point, as I said, I think that as early as this week, Ethereum could be putting in a brand new all-time high. This will require a little bit of patience. And as you can see, according to my last video, this trade was down $20,000, but I kept on holding on. Right now, we're down $6,000. And I've been holding on to this trade for quite some time. So I do think that we will be seeing the uptrend and Ethereum will be putting in a brand new all-time high. Now, if you want my exact trading positions, because we also had a very, very profitable Bitcoin trade lately where we yielded over $50,000 in profit, you have that first link in my description down below. DM me the word premium on Telegram by clicking on this link, and I would be happy to onboard you into my group completely for free. The only requirement, and I mean only, is that you sign up with one of my affiliate exchange links and you start trading on there to join my premium group. Now, you can join me on Bluffin, you can join me on Weeks, and if you don't want to sign up before messaging me, there's no problem problem there, I will send you all of the instructions directly on Telegram. Remember, that is the first link in my description down below. So what is next? Because I've talked about a red September. The only thing that's worrying me a little bit about this red September is that we've been talking about this for over a month now, and I'm seeing more and more people start to talk about a red September. The reason why I personally thought that we could be seeing a red September is, first of all, we had a ton of bullish months in a row. I mean, you could basically ignore June, not even negative 0.1%. And every post-halving year, we typically get some kind of red September. Now you can see this starting in 2013, which we covered in my previous video, minus 4%, then 2017, minus 10.6%, then 2021, minus 1.31%. And so I don't think it's unreasonable to expect some kind of correction in September. Now, if this were to occur, I don't think that it will just be straight down. There could be some choppiness involved, but ultimately the month could very likely end red because we also know that this isn't favorable seasonality for stocks. That being said, this September, in my opinion, would be the excellent opportunity to load up and start entering some very strong trade positions on our way up to the peak of this bull market around October to December, sometime around this range, and I would be taking profits on the way up after we get some kind of September correction. Remember, if you want to know the exact trades that I will partake in after this correction or even before this correction occurs, you have that first link in my description down below. Also, just quickly, we do have an insane promotion with Bluffin, and so if you're a big trader like myself, if you deposit 25K, you can get VIP 1 on Bluffin. If you deposit 50K, you can also get VIP 2. Now, the benefit of having VIP is quite simple. You just get insanely reduced fees. So if you're a relatively big trader, you can take advantage of this by signing up with me on Bluffin with the second link in my description down below. Now, let's take a look at the liquidation heat map. First of all, for Bitcoin, you can see that there's a ton of liquidity between 119 to 120K. Now, to me, personally, I hope that Bitcoin can consolidate above the point of control, $118,000, but ideally we get back above 120K for a few days at the bare minimum. If we can get that, then in my mind, there would be no reason for ETH to not hit a brand new all-time high. But taking a look at Ethereum, you can see that on the weekly time frame, a lot of liquidity is right around $4,825. And if I need to remind you, the all-time high for ETH, depending on which exchange you're looking at, is right around $4,868. And so, can we break this all-time high? All eyes on Bitcoin. Bitcoin will guide us to that all-time high for ETH, but it needs to behave as I always say. And right now, it's just consolidating. But what we don't want to see is something like this, the correction, and then we had another little pump, and then we had another little pump, because right now, I'm hoping that this right around $117,000 is the low for Bitcoin. I don't want to see us go back into this range because that would likely not be good for my current Ethereum position. And in terms of the news recently over the weekend, we do of course know that President Trump and President Vladimir Putin were meeting in Alaska, and we also had Eric Trump coming out and saying that everyone should prepare to buy the dips. Now, I don't personally like this because every single time that this guy has said to buy the dips, we did indeed get a pretty aggressive dip before going ahead and moving higher. So I hope that this isn't one of those situations, especially considering my expectation for ETH to put in a brand new all-time high within the coming weeks. But let's see what happens here. We also have Michael Saylor that came out announcing again another Bitcoin buy. If you don't know what I'm getting at, every single time that he posts this chart with his Bitcoin accumulation with MicroStrategy, there's always an announcement on the Monday confirming how much Bitcoin he just bought between this last period. So let's see what happens. Insufficient orange. I think most of us at this point probably consider ourselves to have insufficient orange in our portfolios. Now, last thing, key events of this week. First of all, Zelensky will meet Trump in the US on Monday, which could be massive for markets in particular. July Fed meeting minutes on Wednesday. Then we have 3 events on Thursday. The August S&P manufacturing PMI data, which will be very important because remember, last week we got some pretty awful inflation data. And so if this inflation data does match up with the one we got last week, then we could be seeing a further correction in the market. We also have the August S&P composite PMI data on Thursday as well, the July existing home sales data, and And, of course, Fed Chair Jerome Powell will be speaking on Friday. Another big week is ahead of us. And that sums up today's video. From a trading perspective, nothing has changed on my part. If Bitcoin can consolidate here this week, I do think that this week at the earliest, we could be seeing Ethereum putting in a brand new all-time high. But we need Bitcoin to play nice, and ideally, we get some decent inflation data. If you enjoyed the content, make sure to smash that like button and subscribe, and I'll see you in tomorrow's video.